this video, I'm going to go over a short introduction to Jungian dream analysis. Okay, so these are the three things I'm going to go through for this video. I'm going to go through the scientific justification for the investigation of dreams, the presuppositions of dream analysis, so there's 4 of them that I could find in what Jung has written, and the prognosis of dreams for the future, so going beyond just the causality of the neuroses and looking at how dreams can offer up a prognosis for a cure for neuroses. And so this information I've got from Jung's book, Modern Man in Search of a Soul. And so I'm just sporadically choosing different topics and sharing my information with you, but I will be doing more dream analysis videos. I just think it's an in-depth topic and I'm not an expert. I'm just reading all of Carl Jung's books. And so I just am sharing to you what I've learned so far. So let's get into it. Okay, so the scientific justification for the investigation of dreams. Here's a quote by Carl Jung. But since, according to our hypothesis, the unconscious plays a causal part in the neuroses, and since dreams are the direct expression of unconscious psychic activity, the attempt to analyze and interpret dreams is entirely justified from a scientific standpoint. Quite apart from therapeutic results, we may expect this line of endeavor to give us scientific insight into psychic causality. Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. So basically, it's a hypothesis that we have, right? That the unconscious plays a causal part in the neurosis. Okay, so that's one kind of hypothesis that Jung holds in Jungian analysis. And then the second thing is that dreams are a direct expression of unconscious psychic activity. And so because of that, because there's a causal connection to a neurosis, which would be, say, I guess, a patient would have a problem with, we can look at the dream analysis as a scientific activity in that sense that we are trying to find the causal relationship to someone's illness, okay? And so that's kind of what is going on here. And so, and not only that, he unpacks how the Jungian dream analysis can be, can open up to someone who wants to look at psychic causality. Okay, so we can use this line of reasoning to kind of investigate psychic causality further. But then he kind of leaves that in limbo there and moves on to the more practical, therapeutic, kind of applied science techniques, because he wanted to make this lecture more practical. And so, but it's important to see the kind of scientific justification for the investigation of dreams, because and Jung's emphasis on the fact that we can discover psychic causality. And I think that's interesting, because we're trying to grab Jung's mind and his thinking and what he's thinking. We're not just trying to understand facts about what he said about dreams. We want to understand the framework that he's thinking as he's creating his hypotheses. So that's kind of why I emphasized this slide here. Okay, so presuppositions of dream analysis. So there's 4 that I could find through reading through this content. The first is the unconscious exists. So obviously the unconscious has to exist for us to even attempt to see any value whatsoever in dream analysis, because if the unconscious doesn't exist, then dreams are kind of just, random fragments of memories throughout the day or through our past, or or they're just fragmentary bits of stimuli, that are just floating around while we're asleep, right? They're just a part of our conscious life in a sense, if the unconscious doesn't exist. But if the unconscious exists, then we can see dreams as different, as something, as Jung said in the other slide, as a direct link to unconscious psychic activity. And then so the second thing is the unconscious plays a role in the formation of neuroses. So I guess if there was no role, in other words, no cause coming from the unconscious to a particular illness, then why would we even want to study the dreams? Because even if they come from the unconscious, it's like, does it really affect our life? But if there is a link between the two, between the unconscious and the conscious neuroses that we see, then we are more bound to say, well, we should investigate that link and investigate the unconscious processes behind that, so we can fix the neuroses that we see on the surface in our consciousness. So number 3 would be dreams are the direct expression of unconscious psychic activity. That's pretty much a given in this, that it's just a direct expression of unconscious psychic activity. And it's pretty intuitive. You can intuitively see that that's what dreams are, but it is still a presupposition. So we take that in order to move forward. We take that as a presupposition in order to move forward with dream analysis. And in many ways, if you do receive benefits of dream analysis, that kind of post hoc proves that that is what it is there. But like when we're dealing with the unconscious and all this type of content, we are doing what Jung always says is we are groping in the dark. Okay, so we can't really prove everything that we're doing, but to me it does seem pretty self-explanatory. But you could say, well, it's not necessarily so, that they are a direct expression of unconscious psychic activity. And then the 4th presupposition that we have to hold is that through dream analysis, we can uncover the unconscious causes of the neuroses. So that's interesting there, okay? And so in this sense, dream analysis is a science, okay? Because we're looking for the causes, we're looking at the actual human psyche, so we're investigating the human psyche scientifically here. Okay, so the first presupposition, the unconscious exists, okay? I'll read this quote here. It is regrettable that in the year of grace, 1931, more than half a century since Carus formed the concept of the unconscious, over a century since Kant spoke of the immeasurable field of obscure ideas, and nearly 200 years since Leibniz postulated an unconscious psychic activity, not to mention the achievements of Janet, Flournoy, and Freud, that after all this, the actuality of the unconscious should still be a matter of controversy. Since it is my intention to deal exclusively with questions of practical treatment, I will not attempt in this place a defense of the hypothesis of the unconscious, though it is obvious enough that dream analysis stands or falls with this hypothesis. Carl Jung. Okay? So basically in that one quote, he outlines a lot of the different influences of people at his time and before his time who have already laid out the existence of the unconscious. And so a good book recommendation from Jordan Peterson, well, I can't really say if it's good or not because I haven't read it myself, but I assume that it's good if Jordan's recommending it. And I have read the reviews for it. There do seem to be pretty positive reviews. There is some criticism, even on Wikipedia, if you read it, there's some criticism of the book. But all in all, they still say, even the critics say, that it is a very well researched and thorough book. So it's called The Discovery of the Unconscious, The History and Evolution of Dynamic Psychiatry by Henry Allen Berger. So that book does cover Karas and Janet, and Freud, kind of puts Freud in his rightful historical position with discovering the unconscious, because it's a common myth that Freud discovered the unconscious. There was obviously people before him who did that, and so yeah, check out that book if you're interested. I will check out that book in the future, but I've got a whole list of Jung books that I'm still going to read. But that is on my list after I finish the Jung books on my list, which is going to take a year, but probably at least 2 years, because I've got about 37. I'm going to go through the whole collected works, and I've got about 37 books, including, like the Cambridge Companion to Jung and all different stuff like that. So it's going to take me a long time to get to this book, but let's just take Jung's quote here at his word. Okay, so the unconscious plays a role in the formation of neuroses. So basically, Jung outlines 2 dreams of a patient he had, and this will help us understand the role of, this will help us understand the relationship between the unconscious and the role it plays in developing neuroses in specific people. So there was this successful patient that Jung had. He was very successful in a worldly sense. So he, had a good career prospects. He used to be from a pretty poor peasant family. So he rose through the ranks, so to speak, and he became pretty prominent in business or in his career. But what happened to him is Jung noticed that he was he shared 2 dreams with Jung, and at the same time Jung realized that he was showing symptoms of mountain sickness. Okay, so kind of dizziness, nausea, weakness, fatigue, stuff like that, right? And so he noticed that, and he got him to share the 2 dreams with him. And the first dream he had was this successful man. He went back to his old hometown in his dream, and he saw some peasant boys he used to know, and he thought that he would try to avoid them because he didn't really want them to see him. But they saw him and they pointed at him, and he said, "Look," something like, "Look, there he is. He doesn't come to visit us, really. He doesn't really come back here that often at all." And that's pretty much the end of the dream, right? And so Jung says that it's easy to see that in this dream, it's about this particular man's revisiting where he came from, right? Because he often doesn't think about the lowly position that he came from, and now that he is so successful, he's just forgot about how he was a peasant and his past, right? And so the dream is compensating for his lack of remembering where he came from, right? And then the second dream he had was basically he was rushing everywhere, trying to get everything ready because he had to go on a trip on this train, and he had all this stuff to do for work. And then when he went to get on the train, he saw that the train was already taking off. But he realized that if the train driver took off too fast, because the back half of the train, those carriages were still behind an S curve in the train tracks. If the train was to take off too fast, it would actually end up swaying the back half of the train off the tracks, off the curve of the tracks. And so that's exactly what happened in the dream, is the train driver shot off too fast to their destination, and the back carriages got caught in the S-curve of the train tracks and flung off and crashed, right? And so Jung basically interprets this dream as basically that this man is pressing too hard to become even more successful from where he is. So he's risen through the ranks, he's very successful, and he finally has a shot to try to go even higher into the upper echelon of society, even higher than he even is. So on the surface, using his rationality, he sees, well, why not? Why not press on? There's nothing stopping me. But his dreams are showing a different story. They're saying, well, no, if you press on too hard, you're going to derail yourself and fall off track. And basically, that's exactly what happens. He presses on harder to move up and to continue to go above his success that he's at right now. And I can't remember exactly what Jung says, but he burns out or something happens and a lot of bad things go bad for him, and it doesn't work out good for him, basically, in real life, this is. And so Jung's got a quote here: the patient's anamnesis permitted the inference that the mountain sickness pointed to his inability to climb any further. The inference is confirmed by his dreams, which present this inability as a fact. Okay, so Jung noticed that he had those mountain sickness symptoms physically, and Jung shows here that the remembering of this man's past with the fact that he was exhibiting the mountain sickness pointed, those two facts, that he remembered his lowly past position through that dream, where he went back and visited his past, and that he's exhibiting mountain sickness, pointed to his inability to climb any further. So the unconscious is basically saying, you're sick, you can't climb any further, that you have to be content with where you are at life, because you remember where you came from. You came from all the way down the bottom, and you should be content with your life that you have now, instead of trying to push even harder to go even higher than you are now. And so the inference is confirmed by his dreams, which present this inability as a fact. So basically, the fact that train crashed is showing you are unable to go any higher. This is a fact. That's what the dream is saying, okay? And so that's an example of how the unconscious plays a role in the formation of the neurosis that this man has. So the unconscious is showing, is bringing up what is happening in this man, okay? And so this is our next presupposition. Dreams are the direct expression of unconscious psychic activity. Okay, so this is a quote by Jung. The dream gives a true picture of the subjective state, while the conscious mind denies that this state exists or recognizes it only grudgingly. Okay, here's another quote. The patient's conscious ego could see no reason why he could not go steadily forward. He continued his struggle for advancement, refusing to admit the fact, which subsequent events made all too plain, that he was actually at the end of his tether. Okay, so his ego, his conscious mind, using his rationality to figure out what I should do in life, wasn't enough, because he wasn't listening to his dreams. Dreams compensate for what the conscious mind has left out. That's basically what dreams do, and what Jung says a lot of the time a dream represents. Okay, is what is the conscious mind not looking out for? In this case, the conscious mind of this man was not looking at where he'd come from and how hard he had already exerted himself to get to the success that he has already. And so the unconscious was giving him these symptoms and causing the neurosis to point back to, hey, you're missing out on something. And so, okay, so when in such cases we listen to the dictates of the conscious mind, we are always in doubt. So there you go. So it's a one-sidedness. Only listening to the conscious mind is a one-sidedness, according to Jung. Okay, so at this point, the dream comes in as the expression of an involuntary psychic process not controlled by the conscious outlook. So it's involuntary. The unconscious is coming up. It's almost like an invasion. You're getting invaded in your consciousness through dreams. They're just coming. You don't have control over the dreams you're having. They're just coming up to show you that, to correct your conscious outlook. It prescribes the subjective state as it really is. It has no respect for my conjectures or for the patient's views as to how things should be, but simply tells how the matter stands. I have therefore made it a rule to put dreams on a plane with psychological fact. So here Jung equates dreams with physiological fact. So here Jung equates dreams with physiological fact. So he sees them as they are, as a matter of fact statement about the subjective condition of a person. So there's no arguing with them. Whatever they present is matter-of-factly plain, the state of what is going on, the whole picture of what actually is going on. Okay, so in this case, these dreams are very, very clear to Jung's point of them being a fact. Okay, so he takes them as a fact and explains here. This is to say that I take dreams as facts that are invaluable for diagnosis. So he's taking them as facts in the sense that without it, we can't really diagnose anything. But you could say that the fact that we can diagnose it and the fact that these people do get better is then that these dream facts are more real than we would like to give them credit for. Okay, so this is through dream analysis we can uncover the unconscious causes of neuroses. Okay, so this is the last presupposition that we have. It is the way of dreams to give us more than we ask, and this is true of those I have just cited as illustrations. They not only allow us an insight into the causes of the neurosis, but afford a prognosis as well. What is more, they showed us at what point the treatment should begin. The patient must be prevented from going full steam ahead. This is precisely what he tells himself in the dream. Okay, so the dream outlines there the cause of his sickness and also the prognosis. So what he should do about it and when he should do it. Okay, so it actually offers up a solution in the dream, which is quite interesting. So I just put here also, although through dream analysis we can uncover the causes, not all dreams actually reveal a cause. Okay, so you might figure out through psychoanalysis, through meeting a therapist again and again, you might figure out the cause of your neurosis after an intense range of sessions through therapy. Okay, so it's not always that dreams can show you the cause of your neurosis either. It's just that it can show you the cause in some cases. Okay, and also Jung shows that not all neuroses can be cured through just finding the cause, even if you do uncover them in the unconscious, right? And that's in contrast to a Freudian view, which basically with Freud, you're looking back into your childhood to try to find the cause from your childhood of why you've got a neurosis or a complex at the moment. Okay, so instead of groping back around in the past or groping into dreams or trying to force and find something that caused this neurosis, because that could do damage, forcing the person to constantly think and find something in their past or find something in the dream that causes this neurosis, instead of taking dreams in a more flexible approach, which is the Jungian approach is more flexible. But that isn't to say that we can't use dreams to find the causes of neuroses sometimes, as Jung showed here with this man with mountain sickness. Okay, so let's move on now to the prognosis of dreams for the future. So we're going beyond the causality of neuroses, and we're going to actually see how dreams can provide a prediction or a future outcome or action that we should take. Okay, so a purely causalistic approach is too narrow to do justice to the true significance either of the dream or of the neurosis. Okay, but it is clear that they also offer a prognosis or anticipation of the future and a suggestion as to the course of treatment as well. Dreams can be anticipatory, and in that case must lose their particular meaning if they are treated in a purely causalistic way. Okay, so if we're only looking at dreams as something that can reveal the causes of a neurosis, we can only look at them as kind of like a historic cause that influenced an effect, which is the neurosis symptoms that we're experiencing. We can't look at it as something that can show us or reveal to us what we should do, how we should cure the neurosis, what might happen in the future as a predictive warning. Okay, so Jung here now is going kind of beyond the original things that he laid down with scientific investigation of causality, and I'm guessing here that this the prognosis of dreams to reveal the future in a sense. I think that Jung might be also alluding to his principle of synchronicity, or a causal significance of meaning or something like that. Okay, so because and it's interesting to just point that out, because we want to understand Jung's thought here, why he has added this in here, okay, and gone beyond the causality of neuroses. So that's that. So thanks guys for watching this video, this introduction to Jungian dream analysis. I'm going to release other videos on dream analysis, so I'm going to probably release one called, I don't know, the 5 rules of Jungian dream analysis. I don't know how many rules there are, but I've discovered little things and tidbits of what Jung has talked about to help you interpret dreams. So this kind of is just the beginning to set up why we would even want to look into dreams, or why that may be valid, that we would look at a Jungian dream analysis. Okay, so yeah, I'll keep studying as well, and as I study I'll release more. I've got here a list of 37 books that I'm reading. Not that I'm reading, but I'm going to read throughout the rest of this year into next year. So I'll definitely hit into the collected works very soon. I mean, I have already been reading it, but in a more methodical, systematic way, I'm going to hit into the collected works. And the next on my list, I'm still going to finish Modern Man in Search of a Soul, but I'm pretty much finished that. And I'm going to move on to Man and His Symbols. And then I'm going to move on to Nietzsche's Zarathustra, notes of the seminar given in 1934 to 1939. And at the same time as I'm reading that, I might go through Nietzsche's Zarathustra, thus spoke Zarathustra, because I have that as well. And look, I think that that's going to be very challenging for me, because, you know, I'm learning about Nietzsche and Jung at the same time. But, you know, I will try to share what I do understand and what I can grasp from it. And I think that that might be beneficial. But yeah, if you like this video and if you're interested in those things and those ideas, then please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.